Peace. It's good. It's your brother Cool.
Peace. Halisi. The wisdom wordsmith. I gotta always introduce myself like that.
The wisdom words. I like
The
it.
wisdom wordsmith. So, we're here today. This beautiful park. You guys can't see. I should do like a panoramic, a little spin, but it's just so beautiful, man. You ain't gotta go far. Sometimes it's in your backyard. I don't know if y'all can see the stage, and we're just out here enjoying nature, exercising our rights.
Our religious rights.
Yes, sir.
Our religious rights. So, you had a couple of Q&A questions.
Nationality is the order of the day. I myself, as a mother, I feel like if mothers can understand this, then we've won half the battle. So I'm just trying to do a Q&A with Brother Koo to get understandings from mothers who may be on the path of understanding nationality, may have already declared their nationality, but still don't know how to operate with that nationality in these public spaces. So I'm going to do a little quick Q&A.
All right.
All right.
On the backside.
You ready?
Yep. I'm ready. Shoot.
All right. So first question, nationality, right?
Mm-hmm.
I like to give scenarios, so it's like question/scenario. But a woman has a child. She's declared her nationality on record already. In what areas do nationality protect her? And can you talk a little bit about the rights of the child?
Well, according to United Nations Declarations for the Rights of the Child, the rights of indigenous peoples, as well as human rights, in each one of those documents, everyone has the right to a nationality. So nationality is the order of the day, and it applies to all peoples, national, international, indigenous, immigrant. It applies to everyone. Everyone needs a nationality. It is crucial, in the protection of your civil as well as your religious rights.
Mm-hmm.
And when we're talking about religion and law, we're talking about trust. We're talking about literally a deed of trust. So, and if I could break that down into a simple form, a deed of trust just means like, what group are you associated with? Who's your clique? If you go to church and you're part of a church congregation, then that congregation would be considered your clique. You know what I'm saying? That would be your association. Those are the group of people you choose to associate with, to give your energies into willingly. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
So that's pretty much all it is. Go ahead.
Yes. So no, I just want to ask you some questions and get.
Yeah.
So does nationality does those protect your religious freedoms?
Yes, as well as your civil freedoms.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Being able to do things such as go to places freely, do as you want without anyone trying to subjugate you, even if you're operating commercially. You know what I'm saying? Being able to be worth everything that you give. You know what I'm saying? Or bring to the table, and not have foreigners. You know what I'm saying? Tap into your assets, to your wealth.
So I want to ask you: does nationality protect your right to immunize or to not immunize your child?
Absolutely, because now this is where indigenous peoples comes into play. Because as indigenous peoples, you know what I'm saying, we have, first of all, indigenous peoples are those who have historical, continuity, have historical continuity prior to pre-colonization. All right, so before Columbus came, we had culture and we had our own traditions and ways of doing things in place. So being that we're indigenous peoples, we have a right to continue in that lifestyle as if Columbus never came to the shores. You know what I'm saying? So with that being said, yes, it plays a major role in the fact that as indigenous peoples, if it's not part of our culture, we have a right to not be affected by that, as if it doesn't exist, because it doesn't exist in the reality of indigenous peoples. But it has to be in your mind. If it's not in your mind firmly that you're indigenous, then that reality won't exist for you.
And so you're saying if it's not in your mind firmly, but also, okay, I'm thinking of, like when we're talking about mothers, right? Because I'm a mother. I have children that are still, I have a child in public school. I have a couple of them in public school and one of them in private school. And so, some of our mothers may already be in these systems, right?
Yeah.
So let's when we say that a child has a right to a name and a nationality, I just want to say that mothers, it is your primary responsibility. If you've already had children and you've already named them and got them birth certificates and social security cards, if they're still under the age of 18 and if they're older, you still owe it to them to undo that curse that you unknowingly put on them, right? So if they still are in public schools, the child should still be in their free national name. So
Absolutely.
that's, can you just kind of add emphasis on that?
Well, absolutely. You know what I'm saying? All peoples have a right to self-determination. So being that we're indigenous and there's a culture that we already have established here, we have the right to self-determine, you know what I'm saying, how we want to, how do I say this? How do we want to push forward those ancient culture and traditions in this time and keep it going further in the future? You know what I'm saying? So with that, being that we all have that right, no one can interfere with that right. So it's like in a practical way, once it's in the mental, then you want that, you know what I'm saying, put that on the record. Not that you're gaining permission, but that you're letting the world know. How they gonna know how to treat you if you ain't gonna let someone know who you are?
To declare the rights for the child, right?
Yeah.
As the mother.
But here's the thing though, the child cannot make any contracts. Minors can't contract. So understand that as the mother, whatever you are, that child is, until that child reaches the age of 18, and then at that point they can make their own decision by law. But until that point, their status is your status. So it's not a question of I need to declare my nationality and then declare my child's. You declaring your nationality is declaring your child's nationality, because the child is not in a frame where they can speak for themselves. So essentially, you are their representative.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying?
So we've talked about how nationality protects a child in the medical arena, public, education, public.
Oh, and just to clear up one thing I didn't clear up. It is important for us, like I said, with the self-determination, to not only identify as indigenous, but to look like our ancestors. Like we have to truly embody being indigenous. You know what I'm saying? It's not enough to just know it.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? But then the world is kind of like iffy, because one day you're in your, you know what I'm saying, you're in your natural habit. Next day you're looking like everyone else. And I'm not saying that like a judgment, but I'm saying that like you can't be back and forth. It's a firm. You know what I'm saying? That's what's going to attract people to you, your firmness.
And I would just say, mothers,
in who you are.
I do work here in Seattle, Washington, within the realm of education. And even though I have the knowledge, and even though my children have the knowledge, my children are still children. They're still going to do kid stuff from time to time.
Right.
And the children still need to be identifiable. Like who is saying, it's not enough to just know it. But then once you know it, how do you mark your children to where they're distinguished? And even myself, like I'm saying, I am not exempt. I do so much work in the community, and even that does not mean that I'm exempt from being targeted or my child being profiled. And so we got him his fez. Got fezes for both of the little boys. I have a 3-year-old and a 9-year-old, and they wear it when they want, so it's not like we're forcing it on them. But talking about the importance of self-identification, self-determination. those are conversations to have with your children as you grow in the knowledge of who you are, and living that thing out. So
Here you go.
Absolutely. You got to embody it.
Here you go.
Thank you. You have to, and if you don't do that, then the child is going to be liable as state property, because you're still going to be liable as state property. So it's, mother and child is a package deal.
Well, and let's talk a little bit about. I want to help mothers understand jurisdiction, because that's of utmost importance, right?
Now, before we go further, I do want to qualify though. When I say mother and package are a deal, I'm not talking in the frame of our culture, because in our culture it's mother, father, and child are a package. But in this culture of everything is corporate and everything is about commercial, they focus on the mother. Everything's based on the mother. That's why they don't necessarily need the father's information on a birth certificate. But they have to have the mother. They always ask for the mother's maiden name. So, all right, go ahead.
So jurisdiction. So now the mothers, they can see that nationality protects their child in every venue that the child would ever enter into. Let's talk about jurisdiction a little bit. And I know there are lots of videos that break this down, but just like a little blurb. Jurisdiction, once we understand who we are, what's our jurisdiction?
Now, it's going to be crazy, because when I break down jurisdiction, it's so simple that it might seem complicated. So here we go. Jurisdiction is a Latin phrase, juris. Juris meaning law or right. Okay? Diction meaning words, or to speak words. That's why you have such things as a dictionary. You see what I'm saying? So diction has to do with words. So when we're talking about jurisdiction, we're talking about the right to speak on a matter. So now, if you identify as an indigenous person that has an attachment to their own culture and traditions and laws that have governed not only governing them now, but their ancestors in time immemorial, you know what I'm saying? Then no one has the right to speak on the matters of indigenous peoples other than indigenous peoples.
Period.
So therefore, that's what jurisdiction is. That's all jurisdiction is. Someone has the right to speak on your issues or your matter. So if you're Black African American, then you're under the jurisdiction of the courts of the United States. So therefore, they have a right to speak on your matters, either dealing with you, your family, your children, like immunization.
Yeah, so list those places. I'm glad that you're saying. You went right into what I was getting ready to say to you. So when he says that they automatically have a right to talk about your family, that's family courts. That's our small boards like Child Protective Services and
CPS,
CSB, whatever human social service, child and welfare social
taxes,
service.
IRS is coming after people's finances, you know what I'm saying? That's also part.
Exactly.
And all those things are dealing in genocide.
Traffic court, municipal court.
You mean trade court.
Right.
That's what traffic means, trade.
So it's really important, mothers, that once you have secured your nationality and you've secured that, then you really need to understand the human rights. What is the United?
United Nations Declaration. Well, like I said, for us, the first point should be Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous People.
Right.
But, if you want to get a true understanding of the overall picture, you know what I'm saying, read all three. Read the UN Declaration on Human Rights, read the rights of indigenous peoples, and read the rights of the child. You see what I'm saying? To get the overall full aspect of what everyone has a right to and what you have a right to as an indigenous person. So all these things are laid out for those people, those classes of people who identify as such. So it's up to you. What is your jurisdiction?
Yeah. And don't be tricked, mothers, okay? I'll just tell y'all a quick little story before we go. I think it was an anonymous report made to Child Protective Services that I was leaving my kids home from 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. Now, I'm a stay-at-home mom. I don't know where, I don't know who reported that or where it came from, but I want you to know, mothers, that it is a violation of your Sixth Amendment right. That's called hearsay, right? So if someone is bringing accusations against you, you have a right to know who your accusers are. If your accusers cannot stand before you and say with certainty, hey, I witnessed, she did blah, 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 then you don't.
Under penalty of perjury.
Under penalty of perjury, thank you. Then it's important that when an accusation is being made, we got to not be so quick to jump the gun to defend, okay? When we know what is true, I always say truth speaks for itself, right? So this accusation came of neglect, and they were all of a sudden, they said, you're leaving the kids. We need to come inside your house and see where the kids sleep and see what they eat. I said, no, you don't need to do that. Sounds like you need to see records, right? So you got to really know what your rights. Man, I'm telling you, they sent the police to my house late at night one night. They tried to say that my son, at the time he was 8, that he had called the police, and we were all laying down sleeping, just kind of chilling, some sleep, because there's 5 kids now. And so,
like 10 p.m. at night on a school night.
We only have cell phones. All the cell phones are on chargers. We know that no one's on the phones. And so you got to really know when they come. They will come with police sometimes because they're trying to intimidate you.
All intimidation.
If they don't have a warrant, they have no jurisdiction. And remember what he said jurisdiction was, right? And so they know that they don't have the right, but if you let them in, if you don't stand up for your rights, they will gladly walk over them if you present the way for them to do that. So like I'm saying, I didn't let them in. I do believe in self-identifying, right? So, some people could say, well, you don't even have to engage with them. You don't have to engage with them. But if an accusation is being made, I like to set records straight. So I invited the social worker to my job during my lunch for us to have the talk so that they can see me in my public element, okay? It's really important that you not let them corner you and get you isolated, especially if they want to have meetings at your home. So, you have the power. I would say identify, speak for yourself, and leave it at that.
Never mix private and public.
Yeah,
So
don't mix.
That was the perfect way to go about that.
Exactly. So, that's public. Meet them in a public space. Shh. And after that, I told her, I said, I am the mother. No one cares for my child more than me. So here you come telling me that you care about the child, but I'm like, who are you? And it's really just important. Like, we don't need to make our children scared, but it's important that our children trust us. It's important that we trust our children. It's important that we talk about trust with our children, just in general, so that when the odd chances like this, things happen, you and your child have already created a bond that can't be broken. So it's just really important as you grow in knowledge and understanding of who you are, having conversations with your children and building that trust. But, like I said, I presented, I let them know, hey, I'm the mother. I don't know who you are saying all these things. I don't know who's made these accusations. If they can't come before me, hey, I just stop engaging with the lady, okay?
Well, let's not skip that. Remember, being that you're part of an indigenous community, you know what I'm saying? You had someone, a representative from your community, you know what I'm saying, be the head point of contact between them and the agency. So we became the wall between you and the agency. They're not just, like I said, you want to separate your private and your public. So when you're part of a state, that means you have people who can speak on your behalf. So if you're really having to deal with situations on your own, that means you don't have no group, you don't have no state.
I also did have, you're right too.
And we also faxed in, you know what I'm saying?
Community members sent letters too.
Also faxed in your declarations that you put on the public record.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? True. And then after that, what happened?
I met with her at my work, and then that was it. I stopped engaging.
And
they kept calling.
Disappeared, texting.
They kept calling, and they're going to come to a judgment. This is the thing. When you're not a U.S. citizen anyways, let them come to their own judgments and their own little small boards. Now, I will say, mothers, Some of us, we got to work that thing out, whooping kids, you know. Some of us were abused as children. We have to heal that. If you are abusing your children and you're leaving marks, and they have visible proof of the markings that you left on your child, nationality still, you still have rights. Culture. What I'm saying, you still have rights, right? But my thing, our culture is not abusive behavior towards children.
They're the ancestors.
So there's a part of me that I don't even want to give no answer or no remedy to people who abuse children. Don't beat up children. But things like neglect, you know, those are so vague that when you let them into your home, when you don't understand the essential elements of jurisdiction, you let the enemy to come in, and whatever they find is what they define as neglect.
But you got to understand too, even if the roles were switched, and let's say, you know what I'm saying, everyone was on this wavelength where everyone had their own everything, their own courts. If you come across the same situation where I would see another indigenous family that's abusing a child, guess what? I would do the same thing that the so-called foreigners are doing, which would take the damn child away from your ass. Because I could see that the child is not safe in that environment. So my first thought would be, well, first things first, let's remove the child from that environment. First of all, for their own mental well-being. Right. You know what I'm saying? Because they have a right to their mental well-being.
Right.
They have a right to not have to go through trauma.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So they have a right, you have a right. But guess what? You violate their right, you don't waive yours. So if you're going to violate your right to protect your child, then you don't waive your right to your child.
Exactly.
Put it like that.
Exactly.
That's 100.
But I guess you got anything else you want to say on that matter?
I mean, like, you know,
I think jurisdiction.
Only thing I want to add is the biggest thing was that the fact that I think everything got quiet once we filed over that what you filed on the public record.
Of course.
Declaring the fact that you're indigenous, because then, like I said, all those United Nations Declaration of Rights of Indigenous Peoples applies now. Why? Because you done self-identified that the fact that you're an indigenous person.
Right. And I mean, like and just know, I guess it wasn't like they were too aggressive. If I was weak and I didn't know who I was, I would have been intimidated. Because they were aggressive. They were mildly aggressive. You know, that if I didn't know my rights, I could see how you easily fall into the trap. But it's really easy to stand on your square, and when in doubt, you're never at fault to say, you know, I need time to review this, to review the information that you've given me. Don't ever say things like, my child wouldn't say that. Don't present distrust to the enemy. Remember, the enemy outside can do no harm if there's no enemy within. So don't ever leave an opening. Don't say things that aren't relevant. Only, you know, if they're asking you questions, only answer what they ask, okay? Because sometimes we give up too much information in the attempts to not look guilty. So it's getting a little chilly out here. The sun has set. But I want to drop that email. I'm going to go drop that email. So, you know, mothers, you got more detailed questions, hit me up. You can email me at wisdommedicine@gmail.com. Wisdom is WIZDOMEMEDICINE. I'm Halisi, the Wisdom Wordsmith.
Also a member of Sunel University, so we working, okay? I can't do everything. I can't do everything by myself. So this is my partner. Get accustomed to seeing her, not just my life partner, but my mission partner.
Business partner.
Business partner, and our mission is to uplift all of humanity. So, you know what I'm saying? Get accustomed to her, all right? Because she will be involved in a lot of what's going on with Sunel University.
Peace.
Peace. Islam.